let's talk about the things that will ruin your business. So like I said before, I have to kind of, trigger warn you guys a little bit. I apologize in advance for any extra sass that you get tonight, because it's been a very long week. And I've been kind of, there's been a lot of joking in the last few weeks in here because I did a poll about how many of you guys are introverts versus extroverts. And I was somewhat not surprised that out of the majority of the group here, the dog training marketing group, that almost all of you are introverts. And even though about 2 to 3% of the population is the particular personality type that tends to dislike people the most, I think it was like 60% of you guys were that personality type. And it's funny because I'm an extrovert. I love people. I love being around people. I love talking to people and teaching people. It comes naturally to me. And I've gotten to the point this year where I have gotten, a little bit more annoyed with humans. So this is a funny topic because I very rarely these days have any difficult clients because I only work with dog trainers now. And you guys are awesome. And you guys know what it's like to deal with difficult clients. But I know also what it's like, even as a people-loving extrovert, what it's like to deal with difficult people. And what it's like to go through things that might kind of ruin your day. Or things that might ruin your business or make you start hating it. Make you start disliking people, disliking dogs. So what kinds of things can ruin your business? So that's mostly what we're talking about tonight, is focusing on the things that would make you hate your business, hate your clients, start hating dogs, because ultimately those are the things that will ruin your business. There's that saying that goes that the number one way to kill your business is basically to run out of money, but that's kind of the end result of doing these exact steps that we're talking about tonight. These are the things that will make you not only run out of money, but screw everything up, and eventually you'll just be a bitter freak gripping your business by the tiny threads of hope that it leaves behind. And if that's what you want, then by all means, follow these steps. So the first step for ruining your dog training business is, I'll tell you a little bit of a story. There's a trainer that's actually in this group, and she sent me a message a while ago, like years ago. She told me that what she was charging for her dog training, for her dog training programs. She was charging by the day for a board and train program. She was charging $25 a day, and I told her that was insanely ridiculous because I knew she was a great trainer, and she didn't know how to get more than that. So fast forward a few years later, and she had sent me this, I hope you guys can see it, this note here is a screenshot from actually it was a screenshot from a post on Facebook, and she said that she had sold 2 programs, one for $39.95 and one for $46.95. And I sent her a message and I was like, can you remind me what you used to charge? Wasn't it like $25 a day for a board and train program? And she said, yeah, she would get $600 a month. So going from like $600 a month, $25 a day, to selling $4,000 and $5,000 programs, that's the kind of thing that I love to see those kinds of stories. Unfortunately, they've gotten more and more and more frequent over the years, the more that, everybody has been in this group and learning these kinds of things. So with that story in mind, step number 1 for ruining your dog training business is to undercharge. And that means that in order to do this step properly, what you should do is go find out what other trainers in your area are charging and then undercut them. What a great way to ruin your confidence and also your clients' dogs, by the way. But it'll also cause you to burn out. Obviously, if you're undercharging, you're going to burn out. You're going to get bad results from dogs because your clients don't commit. You're going to have a lack of confidence because you can't get the results that, you're capable of getting for them because the client quits after a lesson or two, And basically what happens is if you are undercharging, especially if you're charging by the lesson or by the hour, what will happen is people will do 1 or 2 lessons and they'll quit as soon as they feel like they've got just enough, to get by. And they'll be like, okay, just enough to be like kind of happy. And they'll quit because they're happy, or they'll quit because it's not working. One way or the other, they'll do 1 or 2 lessons and that's it. And you guys know that a lot of the times when you first start training a dog, the dog is like a ridiculous, crazy, stubborn monster for a lesson or 2. And then all of a sudden it clicks and they're like, okay, you know what? It's just a lot easier to listen. I might as well just do it. And then they're great. So if you let people just go a lesson at a time, or you just sell, packages of lessons, then people will try to get as much as they can for as little as possible. And, because you're selling your time, and you'll end up getting more bad clients because you have to get more clients. You know, the more people you have to attract to meet your income goals, the more clients you get and the more chance there is of difficult people. You can't provide as much certainty to people because you're kind of just selling, you know, we'll see how long it takes. We'll give you, you know, we'll do lesson at a time. You pay me as we go, and eventually we'll get some kind of result. And they don't know how many, they don't know how much. And again, every single lesson, it's just a lot of pressure on you to reach some kind of goal because they're paying for that time. And that actually, it works that way even if you were just selling packages of lessons. It's really easy to undercharge if you're doing anything that looks like you're charging a certain amount for your hours. You know, if you have a package that's 4 lessons and it's $900, they're just going to do the straight math and say, wow, that's a lot per hour. And then it's really hard to raise your prices and not undercharge because they view it as like, geez, you're making more than my lawyer, you know? So it's really hard to do it that way. And you guys who have been around, hey Lauren, a long time know that the one of the biggest cardinal sins of packaging your dog training is to charge by the hour or charge by the lesson. But a lot of trainers don't realize, and a lot of you guys in the group this year are newer, and you might not know that having a package of lessons or a package of days for board and train, or a package of, you know, just the 2-week program or whatever, it's all packaged based on just time, is the same thing as charging by the hour. It's just a package of your time. So then people don't know that you're, or they kind of view it like it's, they're paying for you for your hours, and then it's really easy to undercharge that way. So instead, what you want to do is make sure that you are not packaging based on your time. So, you know, a lot of you guys have heard me say this like 5 million times. It's like the number one thing you always have to make sure you're doing is make sure you have your dog training program set up as programs, not as packages. So everything needs to be, the way a program works is everything they need to reach any kind of goal, whether it's just kind of basic obedience around the house or off-leash advanced obedience around distractions, some kind of goal is in that program. Everything that they need to reach that goal is in that program. It's not just a collection of time. It's not just 4 lessons for this much money. It's this outcome that happens to usually take about 4 lessons. It's a completely different perspective. You would also want to have more than one size of a program, so usually about 3 of different sizes that include different amounts of time and attention, bonuses, results, convenience, long-term support, all these different types of things that they would appreciate in different amounts. The bigger programs have more of those things, smaller programs have less, and that way they would look at it as they're paying for that end result. What's funny about that, and this is my favorite thing about having programs rather than packages, is that they would view, your clients will view it like, if it's like, you know, certain outcome usually takes about 4 lessons and they get done in 3, they're like, that's great, I beat the clock. You know, you got paid for 4 lessons and they only did 3 and they're happy about that. Whereas if you sold them a package of 4 lessons, if they only did 3, they would feel gypped. So it changes their mentality and how it's viewed so much, and you're able to represent the outcome and the benefits of your services in the same amount of time so much easier that it's a lot easier to not undercharge. And then you don't have all those other issues of burning out, the difficult clients, the people who treat you like you are a hired hand and a labor worker instead of an expert, like consultant basically is the way they should view you, and all those other things. So step 1 for ruining your dog training business is to package your services in the wrong way so that you end up undercharging, or just undercharging in general. You could have your program set up perfectly but still be undercharging. I see it all the time. So if you want more help with that particular topic, I've done tons and tons of training on the right ways and the best ways to figure out for your unique dog training business and what you offer, how to package it so that you're not undercharging. So if you need help with that, just send me a message after this live and I will give you some more resources on that. I also have some courses that will help you with that too. So if that's the main thing you feel like you need, just let me know. So that's the first step. The second step for ruining your dog training business, the story I have on this is really, as you guys who've been training for, you know, more than a minute will probably have had the same thing happen. You know that client that you have and have had probably multiple times that doesn't listen because they think they already know everything already. They had a dog before that they trained. in the past, and it worked fine, and they did it themselves. And so they get what I like to call teacher syndrome, which means, they think they know it already, and they think that they could teach it, but they're still struggling with that topic themselves. So they hire somebody to tell them how to do something they think they already know how to do. And when that happens, that client that you have where the husband stands on the corner and he's like, I already tried that. That's not going to work. Or, it's my wife's fault because she's just not hard enough on the dog and she's just not being a leader. And I already know how to do that and I can do that better. And I don't need to listen to you, you little dog trainer. That client? Well, you know what? Teacher syndrome hits dog trainers just as hard, which means that the step for ruining your business here is to make sure you lack all humility and you stop becoming a student of anything once you open your dog training business. So, in fact, make sure you argue excessively with the ones who get paid to teach people what you don't know and who clearly have had a lot of proven advice. So one of the great things for you guys is that you're in this group because you have some humility and you're here to ask questions and get help. And there are several dog training business coaches in here that are awesome and can give you advice on different topics. We have an SEO guy. We have somebody who's great at automation. We have somebody who's great at Google AdWords. I teach all about program creation and the sales process and website content and talking to people and all that stuff and a whole bunch of other things. So you have all the resources. But the problem here is that dog trainers, especially, believe it or not, when they're newer, tend to get this kind of, I don't know if it comes from like the dog training schools where you get out of school and you have your certification, you have this great confidence in your dog training skills, and you think that the only way, you know what you need to know. And if anybody tells you otherwise, then it's probably just because they are, they don't like your training method or something, like they just are full of BS, and it's really funny because like I'll run a Facebook ad or put a post out that will be about something, teaching some kind of marketing or client attraction topic. And I'll get all of these like comments, not always, I get a lot of love. And then I'll get like an occasional hater who's just like, you know what, this is all BS. There's no secret to, getting clients for a dog training business. You just have to work hard. And if you're lucky, you'll get enough referrals eventually after 10 years. And I'm like, no, that's not true. Sorry. So famous marketing people say that the things that will get in your way the most, these are people that have been my mentors for, decades. They will say the things that get in your way the most is the tendency to think to yourself, I've heard this before, or this won't work for me. It can be hard to know where to get good advice, and I get that because there's a lot of conflicting advice and it all sounds equally, it all kind of makes sense when you don't know and you just kind of hear it. But it's just like dog training advice. To a dog owner, some things might make sense on the surface that because they just don't know, and it might actually be awful advice. And I was having a conversation with another dog training business coach who works in a different different area of mine in marketing, and a couple weeks ago about dog trainers, and he was saying that we were talking about how there's a lot of dog training business coaches that have kind of come out of the woodwork in the last few years, and I think some of them, we were talking about how a lot of them I think are like internet marketing people who had a different online business teaching something, and some guru told them that teaching dog trainers as a business coach was a good idea. So they decided, I'm going to be a business coach for dog trainers too. But they've never had a dog training business. They don't know anything about the way dog owners think. They just decided for some reason that it was a good niche. So years ago, I had gone to a conference it was a online marketing conference, and I was with a friend of mine who was a dog trainer, and she was creating an online course for dog owners. And this internet marketing expert gave her some advice about how to sell her course. So during that, I was, the advice actually, if you were any other person, sounded like good advice. Is my thing still working? Okay, you guys are still here. Good. So to any other person, it sounded like good advice. For just regular internet marketing, selling a course, it was good advice. But to someone who knows the way dog owners think because of studying it for, 18 plus years, it was bad advice because she just didn't know how dog owners think. So I was like, you know what, actually you might want to think of it this way. Her advice is good in these areas, but dog owners are like this. And she's like, oh yeah, that makes more sense. So here's if you are really not careful about this part of the step that might ruin your business, then what will tend to happen is you won't end up getting help from the right people. You'll get advice from all over the place, and it'll just take you forever to figure it out. Or you'll think you already have it figured out. And that's one thing that I've seen a lot this year, not only just from the newer dog training businesses that have started over the last year with the pandemic, but everybody has kind of gotten, a lot of people have gotten a kind of a bit of a false, increase in their business during the pandemic, more than usual for most summers. All the pandemic puppies and everything. So a lot of dog trainers have kind of gotten by with sucking with their marketing this year, honestly. And I say that with, the utmost of tough love, because it's just been a weird year. So, a lot of dog trainers just kind of act like they already have it figured out because they're doing great. And that might change, especially as we get back into normal, that things kind of fall back into the way it usually is, and especially going into the winter. Another thing it might look like, having that teacher syndrome and not being willing to be humble and be a permanent student and keep learning things, is being afraid to make changes, or being critical or skeptical of, advice that's proven, that has worked for hundreds of people. Or being afraid to change something because you're the way you've always done things the same way, or you're afraid of making something worse somehow by making changes, and you're just kind of, you're afraid to change anything because you're barely hanging on right now. So here's what to do if you want to avoid doing this step to ruin your business: is make sure you find people who are doing well in their dog training businesses and figure out why they're doing well and what you can kind of model. But don't just straight copy what they're doing, because sometimes you can just take bits and pieces from everybody and fit it together and it doesn't work. So figure out why the things work and what you can model, and also take advice from people who have any kind of, a proven track record of giving good advice. Make sure you're paying attention to people who had their own dog training business successfully, or at the very least have tons and tons of success stories from other dog trainers. Excuse me. So that's really important. I lose my voice really quickly. I was complaining about that during the last live. Whoever it was told me I need to look up a voice coach. And I still have to do that. So thank you for that. Hey, Brandy. And Megan's here. My resident INTJs. Thank you so much for being here. My people-hating introverts that I love so dearly. I appreciate you guys. So, yeah. It's really funny because, if you guys know anything about the Myers-Briggs personalities, my personality type loves introverts that hate people. So that's all making sense. So that's step 2 of how to ruin your dog training business. Now step 3 of how to ruin your dog training business. So I once had this client who had a chow. And the husband was a nice guy, and he was always mortified by his wife's behavior during the lessons, because she was the biggest baby that ever existed, like the world-class baby. And she was very difficult, and I am normally a very compliant, yes, I'm an ENFP. How did you know, Kim? How did you know? He guessed it. How did you know? Did you go back and find that post? Did you see the poll? Is that how, or did you just guess? I gotta know. I gotta read this comment. Wasted nearly $4,000 on programs recently just to find out it was all garbage. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. That's awful. But I've heard that story multiple times, and I'm so sorry about that. Hey, Glenn. Okay, I gotta go back and read these comments in a minute. So this client with this chow, I was a very compliant kind of, I'm very nice, and I try to be helpful and kind and accommodating. And I was like that with my clients. And as I, as the years went by, I got gradually more assertive. I grew up in South Carolina, and then when I got married, I moved to New Jersey. So I automatically had to get a little bit more assertive, because a little Southern girl, and then starting in a corporate environment, and then eventually quitting and opening a dog training business. It was quite a shock, to the system, and I had to get a little bit more assertive. So time went on. I would not have put up with this kind of behavior from a client at this point in my life, but back then I did. And she brought her dog over for boarding after the dog was trained, which was training the dog was a nightmare to begin with because of her. So she brought the dog over for me to watch the dog while they were away. And she's like, can you please not put him in a crate? He does awesome if he's not in a crate. He hates crates. He's so unhappy if he's in a crate. Can you please just leave him in like a guest room? And I was like, okay, you know what? I do have the space. I only have one other dog here for training right now because I was only taking one dog at a time for board and train programs. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll do that. So the dog ended up eating one of my doors. And it wasn't because he wasn't trained and he had separation anxiety or something. He was kind of one of those dogs that was just kind of a jerk, sometimes, and his training had not been maintained. So he was with me for like 30 minutes and he ate through a door. So he went in a crate. But that owner, and I called the owner and I told her, and I was like, I have to put him in his crate for his own safety. But that same client was also very one day she asked me, how do I get him off the bushes when he jumps on the bushes? And I was like, he knows the off command. Just say off and he'll get off. And she's like, but what if he doesn't want to get off? I don't want to hurt his feelings. And I was like, are you serious? Like, you paid me for this. Why do you hire somebody to give you advice and then you don't do it? And that I've asked that question in my head about a lot of clients over the years. So step number 3 to ruin your dog training business is to make sure you get lots of difficult clients that don't listen to you. And that will certainly help you with losing all your confidence and stop liking people the rest of the way and be stressed out and take time away from good clients who deserve your time and will give you lots of fears about what they might do, their threats for negative reviews and their threats for getting, disputing on their credit card the payment for your program that you did a year ago. And you know what? Too many clients at lower prices, like we were talking about undercharging before, too many clients at lower prices mean more chance of 1 or 2 bad clients causing you a lot of trouble. So lower paying clients also tend to be more difficult in general. For some reason, and it's not actually for some reason, it's for a valid reason. The reason why higher paying clients usually are better clients is because they're more invested. So they value your knowledge more because they paid more for it. And that's just the tendency. There are some exceptions. Once in a while, you'll get a high-paying client that's just a pain because they are just a pain, and they have more money than they have sense. But that's pretty rare. Most of the time, the more skin they have in the game, the more likely they are to apply what they learn. And I've seen that even in my own programs, like teaching dog trainers, that the ones that will do, my private one-on-one coaching, and which is more investment and more help from me, direct help from me, will apply it faster and get more out of it because it was a bigger investment. So they want to get it back quickly. And that will happen even with with other programs. I see people all the time who get it and never even open it, never use it, never, consume it, never apply it because it just wasn't, their skin's not in the game as much. So your higher paying clients will be better clients. They'll apply it more, they'll listen more. You might also be attracting more difficult clients by accident with your marketing. So, for example, if you have a lot of stories on your website of dogs with severe aggression, then you'll get more of those. And it might not be your favorite. So watch kind of like what you're accidentally putting out there in your marketing content. Another really common example is like you guys who are like tough guys, your websites look like you are training military dogs all the time. And you have the picture of the dude with the bite sleeve and everything. And you're going to get more of the guys that want like the personal protection stuff. Just because that's what it looks like on your website. And it's all like, canine everything. And you might actually want more of the housewife with the crazy lab, that just pulls and jumps and barks and the usual stuff. So really think about who you're trying to attract and if the stuff on your website is attracting that kind of person, or if you're accidentally attracting who you don't want by accident on your website. Even if you do everything right, sometimes you'll get a difficult person that kind of slips in. And so then you still need to know how to handle those people. And there's a ton of things you can do for avoiding and dealing with difficult clients so that those things don't keep you up at night and ruin your days. If you're like me at all, like I hate confrontation. Some people don't mind it at all. And they're like, bring it on. And I will, run circles around you when I write you back my scathing email. But I'm not like that. If I have to write a scathing email, it ruins my whole month because I hate confrontation. I just want to be nice and I want everybody else to be nice to me. So talking about how to deal with difficult people. There's a lot of things you can do as far as like your contract and what to say in it, and not letting people hold you hostage at the thought of a negative review, and how to deal with conflicts and all kinds of things that I can help you guys with. So I'm going to do that a lot in this month's Make It as a Dog Trainer monthly class. We're going to dive into that completely, of how to do all that contract verbiage, a whole bunch of stuff. How to get more amazing clients, the raising your prices thing, all that stuff we're going to talk more about in this month's episode, which again, I'm going to give you guys for free for being here live. So here's one thing just to give you a little bit of extra tip on that. In the meantime, is one of the biggest things you can do to help prevent or deal with difficult clients is to make sure you're setting expectations correctly in the beginning of the program when you first start, verbally, in regular person speaking words, not dog trainer words that they don't understand. But, get rid of the jargon. That should be out of your marketing content. It should also be out of your teaching content in the very beginning of your program with people. And verbally explain your training methods, the reactions they might see, what might happen in the beginning of the program versus later on. Reassure them about the challenges they might face, the things the dog might do. If the dog is going to, be really dramatic in the very beginning and freak them out, you need to warn them about that. If it's going to take a couple lessons before they see the results, but, the program includes several lessons, so don't worry. Things like that you need to make sure you explain in the beginning. Set the expectations correctly early in the program, verbally, by explaining all of these things and what they can expect. And that helps save a lot of trouble. It's also really good to have that written down in your actual contract and stuff, and your policies documents of what their expectations should be and what your expectations for them are, and all that stuff. And we'll talk more about that during this month's marketing, Make It as a Dog Trainer monthly. I call it marketing monthly all the time for short. So that you guys know, I'm going to go through these questions for you guys too, so stick around so I can answer your questions. Here is the promised thing. So those are the 3 steps. I'm going to go through those again real quick. The 3 steps for ruining your dog training business. Make sure you undercharge. Make sure you think you already know everything and you lack all humility. And don't be a permanent student by any means. Don't stop learning. Don't keep learning. You can ruin your business like that. And number 3, make sure you get lots of difficult clients. So those are the 3 steps for ruining your dog training business. And in case you don't want to ruin it, all the things to do instead.